Going live.
Going live.
Going live. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming on The Show Must Go On line. Today's guest is Pulitzer Prize winner Michael or Jackson. How are you feeling today?
I'm pretty good. Today's been a little bit of a busy day, but I'm good.
Has every day since the announcement just been a little crazier?
Pretty much.
What?
And getting crazier by the day, yeah.
Let's just jump right in. What I've watched, I'm gonna be honest, I've watched a bunch of your interviews, so I feel like I know a lot of these answers, but for everyone watching at home who hasn't, or who, I always find that sometimes when you answer you answer the same question a few times, sometimes there's new things that you remember or that you like to share. So how did you find out you won the Pulitzer?
I found out because I was on the phone talking to playwright Brandon Jacobs Jenkins. He's a friend of mine, and we were talking about Real Housewives of Atlanta, which he does not watch, and he wanted to know why I watch it. And so I was trying to explain it to him, and unbeknownst to me, he was watching the Pulitzer announcements. And so he was the one to tell me.
That's a good friend. Someone who's I'm going to distract you, but also I got your back.
Yeah, no, Brandon's a true homie.
What was that feeling like? I know, once again, you're getting asked that all the time, but what was going through your head?
It was disbelief at first and confusion just because of the world we're in, that it just seemed like anything. It seemed like the Pulitzer seemed almost like something from the old world.
Yeah.
And yet it wasn't the old world, It was kind of proof that the world was continuous.
Mm-hmm.
And I my body sort of didn't know what to do because my phone was suddenly buzzing and exploding, and I was just I just didn't know what to do because I would have ordinarily just run out into the street, or I would have been already getting dressed to go jump on the train to go somewhere, but I couldn't do anything really. So I certain people started calling. I answered some phone calls and just sort of took it from there.
I clearly couldn't imagine that amazing feeling, but also the amazing feeling coming at such an odd time in our lives, and it being quarantine, and all the mixed emotions of, even when you ask someone how are you doing, that comes with this mixed bag, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Have you gotten the gas back on yet?
The gas got turned back on 2 days later, just by happenstance. It was a Christmas miracle that they finally, after 11 months, my Con Edison came back and turned our gas back on, and the whole building rejoiced because my entire building had been without gas for almost a year.
That is bonkers.
Yeah, tell me about it.
And it's such a right now I'm in Washington State, actually. I'm in Washington State, and I heard, are you in Washington Heights?
I am, indeed. I'm literally right down the street from Lin-Manuel. He lives on my block.
They should call
But on the other side of the tracks.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he lives on the right side of the tracks, and I live on the wrong side of the tracks.
It should be renamed Pulitzer Prize Row.
Oh, that would be hilarious, right?
Yeah, amazing. I heard in an interview that he was in talks, or he was prepping Moana, and he was oh, sorry, I just won the Pulitzer. What were we talking about?
Right. Yeah, no, he definitely won the Pulitzer on a different level than I won it.
It's still the Pulitzer. I wouldn't.
No, it is. I'm not. But I was not prepping a Disney film at all.
Gotcha.
I was in my glamorous, tiny apartment,
yes.
during a global pandemic. That's where I was when I won my Pulitzer.
True. Yeah, there are different When you look back at this time, it'll be like, yes, these
I
are
won't
my
forget.
walls, you know?
I mean, I definitely won't forget. It'll be like super memorable in every way.
Amazing. And that Strange Loop reunion was so much fun. Was it amazing just seeing everyone again?
Yeah, and Raja Feather Kelly is just like should host everything. He should host the Oscars. He should host the Tonys, the Emmys, just everything.
Yes, I agree. The energy, the sparkle. I was like, ooh, I need more glam.
Yeah, for sure. I need more glam.
Do you have I know he asked like everyone, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking Martinelli's sparkling apple juice, which I don't get to have very often, and so I bought some.
I like that. Treat yourself.
Yeah.
Right now I'm rocking a sparkling water in a chalice.
Oh, that's beautiful. I don't have any chalices. I need to get one.
Highly recommend it. It makes your ordinary sparkling water so wonderful. So I always like to say hey to everyone watching at home. If you have any questions or comments, just put those in the YouTube comments below. Joey says, hey, I'm on the same side of the tracks you're on. I'm calling ours the right side.
Fair enough.
I love that. Oh, my dog, I don't know if you're a pet person, but I have an adorable dog, Slim, and it's raining outside, or I guess it just was, and he was like, I'm coming inside, but now he's like, yo, I want to go outside. So I feel I'm gonna go let him out. This is
Okay.
All right, Slim, have fun. If I don't let him out, he will just be scratching, and no one needs that.
Right.
I certainly feel like pets during the pandemic has been this saving grace for me, at least, just having this wonderful animal.
I feel like I talked to friends who are like quite grateful to have their pets with them. I don't have any pets, but I can only imagine like just having that would be like therapeutic.
Yeah, for sure. Well, some people have their Pulitzer, some people have their pets.
Right. I mean, although I don't physically have a Pulitzer, I think it's going to arrive in the mail any day now.
Is that like this weird thing you go to see what's in the mail and you're like, has it come yet? No, not today.
I think so. I mean, I talked to them the other day and they were like, oh, we're sending you the check and the certificate in the mail. I mean, but I don't know if that means it'll come by like a messenger or it'll just be like shoved into my mailbox.
Right. Like you'll get a knock on the door like, your Pulitzer, sir.
Yeah. So we'll see.
I'm excited to hear or see a post about it because I'm sure that'll be a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Is it just even as I'm writing it, right? Like it's now a title, right? It's like Pulitzer Prize winner, and it just it adds this extra.
Yeah, it does. It's weird. I mean, it's nice. Like I get it, but it's like I wasn't on my vision board.
Get that. But, dream big and you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure.
So, okay, now that we've gotten all the Pulitzer talk out, I'd love to go back and hear the origin story of you being an usher and then Usher and all the double meanings of Usher, the singer, Usher and Usher, Michael Jackson, Michael R. Jackson, all of it.
Yeah, I mean, Strange Loop started off as a monologue that I wrote when I was a senior in college at NYU studying playwriting. And it was at that time, it was called Why I Can't Get Work because I was about to graduate. I had a playwriting degree or was about to have a playwriting degree. And I didn't know what I was going to do with my life or who would hire me. And so I wrote this sort of long stream of consciousness monologue about being a young Black gay man walking around New York City wondering why life was so terrible. And from that got performed in a youth theater festival that a friend of mine got me involved in. And then I went to grad school for musical theater writing. And there I went to study book writing and lyric writing, which I'd never had written lyrics before. And I learned how to write lyrics over the course of the year. And then for one assignment, we had a teacher who said, if you're a lyricist who's never written music and you want to try it, go for it, and vice versa. And I'd grown up playing piano and playing choirs and singing in choirs. And so I was very musically inclined. And so I took a stab at setting my own lyric to music. And the song that came out of that was Memory Song, which is In a Strange Loop. Though at that time, it was just a standalone song just for me. And it went over really well in my class, and I was encouraged to continue writing my own music, even though I was going to be paired with a composer for my thesis project for the second year. So I just kept writing songs on the side for myself, and I let people listen to them, and people kept encouraging me. And gradually, and a lot of those songs were like very personal. And then like there was a director who I had been working on some short plays with, who had heard some of the songs, had read the monologue, and we'd got an opportunity to put some work up at Ars Nova in like 2006. And so we started seeing if there was a way for us to put the music with the words of the monologue. And then that sort of transformed into this one-man show called Fast Food Town, which I performed at Ars Nova for about 20 people. And 2 of them walked out. And I came away from that knowing that whatever this was, I didn't want it to be like a cabaret one-man show thing. And so my director and I started working with the playwrights realm here in New York City when they were first starting out on just developing the book of it. And somewhere in that transition, the piece changed into a musical called A Strange Loop. And from there, we did some development on the book. We did a reading. That director got busy. I did another reading with another director at the Lark Play Company Development Center. I don't know the exact name of the Lark. And then that director got busy. And then I decided that I wanted to hear what the show sounded like with the music, because I had never had done a version of it where I had the songs I had written in it. And so I called up Stephen Brackett, and he had directed some concerts of mine at Joe's Pub and at the Laurie Beachman. And he read the script that I had at that time, and he said, what if we cast this with all Black and queer people? And that sort of cracked open something that was inherent about the content. Because up until that point, there was a Black queer protagonist, but all the other voices in it, which weren't called thoughts at that time, were like played across race and gender and so on and so forth. And so we cast that for this reading that I put together at NYU in 2012. And it was still really rough, but really powerful. And then I ended up putting it away for a couple of years. And then Shakina Nafak approached me when she was starting the Musical Theater Factory, saying, hey, I'm starting this sort of developmental hub for new musicals. Do you have anything that you want to, bring into the inaugural writers group? And I was like, well, I've had this show that I've been working on and off again for the last couple of years. And so he said, we'll bring it to our writers group. So I brought it to the writers group, got some feedback. And then Shakina thought that what I needed was just to do a 2-week residency of it. So we did a 2-week like workshop and residency, and we did a reading. And then that was sort of, that reading was like when the piece began its like proper trajectory, because from that's when Kent Nicholson, who is the musical theater producer at Playwrights Horizon, sort of began tracking the piece.
Okay.
And so it just, and that was 2015. And so it, it got a bunch of different little developmental opportunities along the way. And we, and Stephen and I just sort of assumed that it would never be produced. And then lo and behold, in 2016, we did a reading for Playwrights Horizons, and a commercial producer approached my then agent about it, and Michael Walkup from Page 73 was interested. And so that producer and Mike Walkup sort of ended up deciding to join forces to try to find a home for this musical. And we did another reading like a year later. And then Playwrights Horizon said that they wanted to do it.
Amazing. What
Yeah.
a journey. It is so cool to
Yeah.
see how something gets birthed from an idea and you don't even know where that's going to go. And then lo and behold, it's, you know, it's larger than life.
For sure.
I'm gonna take a moment. I don't know if there's like a Wi-Fi thing going on here because it's raining, but it looks like it stopped, and I want to make sure that we are still live here. So I'm just gonna take a moment and do that because I feel like it's better to make sure than yeah, I might have to create a new link. This is fun. Never happened. Oh, it says live. Maybe it was just a pause. That's fun. Cool. We're back on. This is great. All right. Sometimes, you know, you gotta like go with the flow. Sometimes things happen. Whew. Awesome. So the funny thing is I've been looking to get tickets for a long time. And then, you know, when you're trying to see something and then all of a sudden everyone finds out about it and the ticket that you were like, oh, maybe I'll go this day or that day is no longer available, right? Like that.
Oh, no.
Oh, don't worry. I got to see it and it was a whole thing. The day that I was first supposed to see it was the blackout.
Oh, the famous blackout.
Yeah, I was there at Playwrights we were there for what, an hour and a half or so, just like not knowing if you would come back.
Yeah, I heard about it because that was like one show that I just happened to like not be there for.
Yeah.
I like decided to take the night off and watching it or whatever. And so I was at home like in Washington Heights.
Oh my God. It was so bonkers. We went on the standby line, which is so cool that theaters do that and they make it so much more accessible for people to be able to see it, you know, for a discounted price if you can't afford it. And we were there for probably like, I don't know, a few hours waiting with these other people. We get inside and all of a sudden like the lights stop and you're like getting Twitter messages like, what's going on? Is everything okay? And that was crazy day to like be at a show, even if you're not going to see a show.
Right.
But then luckily they extended and I like hopped right on that.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm so glad you were able to see it.
Thank you. Me too. Thank you for writing it and putting it into existence. Having the thoughts around it is this like bigger, larger than life at times moments show, which is so wonderful and so many reveals. And it's just, when you were like putting it all together, did you want it to just be like, oh, here's a big moment and here's a big moment and how can we make it really like in your face?
Well, I guess like sort of form sort of dictated content. And so like once I knew that what we were dealing with was Usher and his sort of many different thoughts and perceptions, that sort of dictated that the thoughts would be able to take us anywhere. That like we could be like we go as quickly as Usher thinks, like from one moment to the next, from one sort of tone to the next, you know, whether it's humor or something that's really dark or whatever. And that just sort of like, once I just knew that that's what it was, it made it very easy to like find my way through the story.
Yeah. Amazing. It's the thoughts and I have all of their names here because I want to give them a shout out. I think it's so great to have, you know, Larry Owens who plays Usher, but having the thoughts as well, like surrounding Antoine Hopper, James Jackson Jr., L. Morgan Lee, who's coming on the show tomorrow, and I'm so excited.
Yes, we love L. Morgan.
Yes. John Michael Lyles, John Andrew Morrison, and Jason, is it VC?
VC, yeah.
Awesome. I always like to make sure I'm pronouncing their names correctly.
Yeah. So yeah, look, I mean, I definitely think of the show as being an ensemble show. Like, even though Usher is the protagonist, like without Usher, there's no thoughts, but without thoughts, there's no Usher. So it's like, it's very, for me, very much, they're all 7 principles in the show.
I love that. Yeah. And you do feel like them all interacting and how they play different roles too as your
Mm-hmm.
parents, and it's just it is for everyone watching. I'm guessing you probably already like have the music, but if you don't, like, get on that. It is jams, it is in your head. It makes you think about things differently, and the fact that a black gay man won a Pulitzer Prize, that is just like in a world right now that's so crazy and filled with not always the nicest people, to know that there is that bright light really has kind of helped shift the way a little bit for me.
Yeah, and I wasn't the only one.
Yeah.
The poetry Pulitzer went to another black gay man who is a friend of mine, and we've been chatting, and it's been really nice to get to know him.
Yeah, I've been seeing on Twitter like the two of you tag together, and I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, Jericho Brown, everybody, like, check out his work.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we have a question here. My friend Ashley says, how did and where did you find things that you felt were so important to tell as part of the story?
It was definitely a process, because as I began writing it, because I started writing the monologue as like a 21-year-old, and then when we did the MTF Musical Theater Factory version, by then I was, what was that, 2015? So by then I was 34. So like so many loops were happening in my life that I was then translating or changing, or because like that's another thing that's like really important for people to understand, is that A Strange Loop is not autobiographical.
Right.
It's emotionally autobiographical, but like the events are like, I might have taken something that happened in my life and then I'd subvert it in some way. Yeah. And so like it was figuring out like what were the most meaningful things to dramatize, and how were they connected, leading to this story about someone who was trying to change himself, or was on a fundamental level dealing with self-hatred. So like it was figuring out like what are these categories. It's career, it's dating and men and sex, it's religion, it's parents, like I just sort of had to like try lots and lots. I have so many drafts of A Strange Loop of just like figuring out what the categories were that Usher was dealing with, and what the loops were that Usher was dealing with. And then like, oh, I don't need that one, or it should be that instead of that, or like, oh, I need to change that up a little bit, like. And that also was about figuring out the thoughts, like what were the tracks that each of the thoughts were in, because I wasn't doing anything as simple as like, that's the happy thought, that's the sad thought. It was more complicated than that. Right. And so and that came from just working with the cast, because most of the people who were on the stage at Playwrights Horizons had been a part of the development since 2015. Wow. And so like the thoughts in some ways were very much molded onto them. So like with someone like L. Morgan Lee, like there was a whole journey of her as a thought, and that helped solidify what the thought was, because it was her. Oh yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it was just a kind of a process of elimination to figure out what to put in.
Yeah, I love when a character becomes a part of the person, and the person becomes a part of the character, and it molds and it grows in that way, and it's not like just a stuck like, well, this is what it's gonna be and you're gonna be that person, which is also sometimes fine, but you can feel when you're watching it and when you're listening to it that there's more personality, and there's you can tell like this wonderful bond in some of those behind the scenes videos that we got to see from the reunion. Those are so much fun.
Yeah. No, I love all of those people so much. So I'm so happy that the show had the success it had, because it's shown such a bright light on all of them.
Yeah, for sure. So I know you're also working on White Girl in Danger. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so White Girl in Danger is my let me preface this by saying I originally moved to New York City with the dream of becoming a soap opera writer. I wanted to be the head writer of One Life to Live, which I don't know what the demographic of your show is, so people now don't even remember what that is. But it was an American soap opera that started on television in 1968 and went off the air in 2009, 10, somewhere around there. And I really loved soaps. I grew up on them. From like a very small child watching with my great aunt Ruth before I started school. And I watched them all the way through like my mid 30s, or early 30s, I guess. And I like interned at All My Children. And like, I was very involved in the soap world. I know I have an almost encyclopedic knowledge of the industry. And this musical sort of came initially as an idea, as like kind of a joke, because there's also like there's daytime soap operas, but there's also like primetime soaps like Melrose Place and 90210 and Dynasty, and then there's also Lifetime original movies, which is like sort of the original inspiration for these. Those movies like She Cried No, She Fought Alone, Mother Not Sleep with Danger, etc. And I just got this idea of like, what if I wrote a musical sort of drama, like set in that kind of universe? But then like, I didn't work on it for a while. It was just a funny little idea. And then after I got accepted into the Dramatists Guild Fellowship, and in the Dramatists Guild Fellowship, you can either work on a musical you've been working on, or you can develop something new. And I decided I had done so much development of A Strange Loop up until that point that I felt like I needed to start something new so that I wouldn't just be one trick pony. And so I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll go back to this White Girl in Danger idea. And it was very tentative. And again, MTF sort of came to the rescue and was like, because we were supposed to do another reading of A Strange Loop with MTF in the development, but then everyone was too busy. And so Shakina was like, do you have anything else that you're working on you'd like to work on with some people? And I said, well, I just started this weird little idea that I don't know really what it is, but I'd like to just try it with some actors. And so we got together a group of actors, and at that point, all I had was like a couple, like I'd written a song and a half, I'd written like a couple of pages of dialogue, and then I had like an outline of like a plot. And so what we ended up doing is that we like read through the pages, we talked about it, I shared inspirations from what it was, and then Shakina came up with the idea of having the actors just improv the outline. And so what I'll say, so what White Girl in Danger is about, there's a long ways of getting into that. What White Girl in Danger is about is that it's about a Black girl character who lives in the world of a sort of soap opera, Lifetime movie universe. And the name of that universe / town is All White. And All White is a town where it's like all white characters who have their various melodramas. And then there are another class of people called the Blackground. And the Blackground are the Black characters who are just there to be like day players and behind the scenes bodies that you just sort of see in the stories and lives of these all whites. And one of those Blackground characters is this sort of spunky girl named Keisha, who decides that she's tired of being in the background, and she thinks that she has what it takes to become a protagonist of her own all-white story. So she sort of like cries out to the writer of the universe to please let her get a shot at being not being all-white, but to be a background who can lead an all-white story. And so the writer of the universe sort of answers her prayer and kind of strikes her with lightning. And slowly over the course of the piece, her hair starts turning blonde as she usurps the sort of storylines from her three main competitors, Negan, Megan, and Megan, who are these three sort of all white girls who have the juiciest stories in all white. So one of them, Megan, has an eating disorder and like a mother who's always like, you have to get an A on everything. And then then you have Megan, who's like the lonely bad girl daughter whose mother is always in Europe and gallivanting and globetrotting. And so she's at home alone doing drugs and having sex with boys.
Oh.
And then you have Negan, who's like the good girl, who's just so sweet and nice, but she's got an abusive boyfriend that she's always making excuses for. And so Keisha slowly takes all of those identities away from them. And the story begins to coalesce around her. But once that happens, sort of chaos ensues, in part because there's a killer who's out on the loose, who's killing off all the white girl protagonists of their own little stories and eventually comes after Keisha. So it's like this weird meditation. It's like both a sort of high drama, melodrama, comic melodrama, soap opera, Lifetime movie, but it's also a meditation on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and representation in stories, and the complications of all of those things. So it's a hoot. Like, I'm really excited about it, especially, I don't know what assuming we were able to get back to normal and A Strange Loop is able to complete its journeys. I'm excited for White Girl in Danger to potentially be the next thing that people see from me, because I think it's a really fun but very thought-provoking show. And that's the kind of work I'm most interested in, is like work that's like totally fun, totally pleasurable, totally accessible, and yet there's you got your vegetables in there and it like makes you think.
Yes.
So that's my hope and wish and prayer for that show.
Me too. I am hooked. This sounds like it sounds like it has a bit of like that Black Mirror element.
Yeah, and a little bit of Stranger Things.
Yes.
Like it's like I was very late to the game with Stranger Things. And last summer I just sat down and watched the whole thing in like 1 week. And like it's the sort of just the attention to detail of a genre. Mm-hmm. Like that I'm trying to sort of do what they do for like 80s teen kid movies. I'm trying to do that with with a lot of stuff, but like 80s, 90s soaps and Lifetime movies and like Law and Order SVU episodes. Like I'm just trying to do that tonal kind of observation that's like really insane, but like you can't help but like eat more popcorn and binge watch it. I want the show to feel like a binge watch.
Yes. Ooh, I like that. I haven't heard a theater piece spoken like that. I really like that.
Yeah, because it's also like a longer piece. Like A Strange Loop was a little over 90 minutes. White Girl in Danger is probably going to be like 2.5 hours with like 2 intermissions.
Ooh.
Yeah.
A double intermission.
Yeah.
Wow, we are here for it. Actually, yes, I want this so badly. Now you got me wanting like to see A Strange Loop and see this like side by side right after each other.
Me too. I mean, they have they have a connection. Like there's not like a direct plot connection, but like there's an analog. There's overlap between the two, and I'm excited about that as well. As people who are fans of A Strange Loop, I think will really take something from White Girl in Danger, especially if you just listen to the song Inner White Girl. Like there's a bridge.
Yes, Inner White Girl. Wait, okay, so that makes me think of something. So I saw you tweet out the Starbucks frappe thing, and
wait, the what?
The frappe drink that like is just like in the refrigerator.
Oh yes, right? That was so crazy. I mean, I don't drink those, so I've only seen them, but I thought it was like fascinating that that's true.
Yeah, I don't understand why you would have something in the refrigerated section that is meant to be frozen. / did Starbucks not know that actually happens?
But don't people just drink it normally? Wouldn't they know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't really drink that often, but like if I have, I would just get it at like a convenience store and then drink it. And it's like fine, right? Like it tastes good. But if it were actually frozen like a frappe, I feel like it would be so much better.
but I guess I'm confused. It's like when people get them, like, can you get that at Starbucks?
I'm not sure.
And when you get it,
I don't know if you can get it at Starbucks, but you can definitely get it at like if you were going to 7-Eleven and it was like a hot day in the city and you're just like walking around and you're like, oh, I could go for like a nice cold drink. You just pick that up, but it's always in the refrigerator section.
It's never frozen. So like, has anyone ever had a frozen one ever?
I don't
like,
know.
Why would, I guess like when I saw her doing that, I was like confused because, and I don't know if people even know what we're talking about, but like when I saw her do that, I was just like, does anyone know that is that the way it's supposed to be? And does anyone, how would you even know that?
I have so many questions.
Does it say on the bottle, freeze this first?
I don't think so. And if it, like, I just feel like they did really bad marketing, because if it was, nobody knows to do that.
Right. No, it was, I don't know. I just felt like it was a public service that I should share that with people, even though I don't drink coffee. I don't drink iced coffee. I don't know. But I was like, oh, this seems like useful information for people to know.
It blew my mind. I think I watched it like 2 or 3 times. I'm like, how did I not know this? I'm one of those, I love to go to local coffee shops and get like an iced coffee and like walk around. There are a few actually in Washington Heights that I love. So,
yeah, there's some good places up here.
Yeah, I love going there. Do you go like, I used to go there like a lot with friends and just like walk around, and there's like the outlook over the GWB. Like, I guess there are different sides of the track, but
I see them, but I'm truly not a coffee drinker, so there's never a reason for me to go. To go in any of them.
Have you found like during this time, have you gotten any more like creativity, or has that been like a little halted during like the pandemic?
I sort of decided early on that time was not of the essence, and that I was not going. My impulse was not to just like dive into writing, because I very much am a writer who needs to absorb what's happening, and this is such a globally disturbing event that I just needed to take all the time in the world that I needed to just absorb it. And so I haven't really written anything new other than I was commissioned. I got 2 different small commissions that were like, okay, write a thing that is this. Okay, now write a thing that is that. And they're short. And they didn't require a whole ton of my brain space to do that. And they were for money. Like, they were very specific, targeted things.
Yeah.
I've not been like, I'm going to now write my COVID-19 play or musical. Like, I'm not in that space. And so now, post Pulitzer, I've got some other commitments, and now that I sort of have to focus on a little bit more. So it's going to force me a little bit into creative space. But for the most part, I've just sort of have been just absorbing life at the rate that it's coming at me.
Yeah, absorbing life. I think that's a great way of looking at things, especially you are experiencing this like monumental moment in such a crazy pandemic time, that just taking that all in and sometimes just living in the moment, right? We always have such a hard time being present, and it's great to hear that you can be doing that right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Amazing. So just a few other things. I want to be like conscious of your time here. We will hit that 1 hour mark and then get off. But when Broadway comes back, and when theater in general, right? Because theater isn't just Broadway. Theater is so many things. What do you feel like that first show back will be like?
It'll probably be very emotional for people, because it'll be the first time that we're able to be with each other in that way, in this communal experience, is my guess. And it'll be a cause to celebrate. It'll be a cause to cry. It'll be so many emotions. People will probably be afraid because they're not going to know. Like, even if there is a vaccine and all that stuff, people are still going to be afraid. Like, there's going to be a lot of emotions and tension and release in everyone, in the performers on the stage, in the crews backstage, and all that. Everyone, like, people are going to have to really sort of step out on faith, or like, and like rely on each other to like get through the performance of it, but also think about the rehearsals. before that.
Right.
And tech and like all those things where they have to do that whole process just to bring it to an audience. So like that whole ecosystem of putting a show up, it's going to be like totally, you know, I think nerve-wracking, but also like a release for people after this sort of traumatic event.
Yeah, I can't wait to, when it's safe to go, I can't wait to go back to theater and just all the emotions that it brings you. Oh,
yeah.
It'll be magical. And I heard A Strange Loop is going to Washington.
Yeah, we're going to be at the Woolly Mammoth next summer. We were supposed to be in fall, but we pushed it back just because for all the reasons that everything all the reasons.
Yes, that is so valid, and there are so many reasons for everything. Yeah, I know it's one of those things that off-Broadway shows don't always get the respect and recognition or the spread that people might not know, like, oh, this is something that I should check out. But I remember back when it was on, how like social media was just like, you know, hey, I think you should watch this, or hey, I think you can see it. And especially now with the Pulitzer, there have been so many people, like I've even gotten messages like, I'm so jealous you got to see it. I can't wait till it comes back on stage.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have to say, like, of all the sort of historical things about the Pulitzer win, the fact that we're the first show that didn't have a Broadway run planned, that like it, and I think just this year in general was like such a great year for off-Broadway musicals with Octet and with In the Green and with MCC.
The Wrong Man?
The Wrong Man.
Yes.
And so many shows that like I hope that in the sort of aftermath of this that like maybe our industry will take a second look at off-Broadway musicals and at figuring out how to create a path for off-Broadway musicals to go to Broadway and to like that. And I think if we're able to do that, that can like change the whole game, you know, of like, it won't just be like, you know, with great respect to the movie musicals and stuff, but like, it won't just be like Broadway is just like a clearinghouse for whatever 90s movie that we want to make into a musical, that it can be a mix of that and like some cool off-Broadway musical that like has an original score and like, because, you know, we can only do a little night music and Phantom and, you know, whatever these shows for so long. We have to like freshen up the pipeline and the canon. I
could not agree more. So much of my favorite stuff I saw last year was off-Broadway. It's truly, it was a special time, and I know that there are people hungry for that, right? There's clearly an audience.
Sure. Oh yes, definitely. So I'm proud that A Strange Loop can hopefully be the little show that can like help usher the way for other shows. Usher. Yeah.
That is so catchy.
I tried. I mean, I stole it from Company. Bobby, Usher. I mean, it's not the same notes, but like the gesture.
Yes. It's so good. It kind of like rings in my ear sometime in the best way. It's so good. And I love I might butcher this a little, but big, black, and queer as American Broadway.
Yeah, no, that's right.
It's like, the beat is so fun, and the execution of the lines. Oh, everyone is so amazing. It is.
Yeah, no, we had a good time.
And I certainly feel like this show, especially you were saying how many different like versions and it came together, but you can tell that like everyone worked together to make it one piece rather than like, oh, here's the choreography, here's the dancing, oh, you know.
No, it was definitely like an integrated effort. It's funny, I don't think I ever mentioned this to Raja, our choreographer, but like early on in my thinking through the show, I always sort of thought about it as weirdly kind of like an homage to the like Follies, like to the Follies shows of like the of like the 20s, you know, and 30s. That like there's this kind of variety show aspect to it that like Usher has created that event in his musical and in his life and in his sort of perceptions of the world, that it's like the thoughts in Usher, they're like kind of like Follies girls. They're like Fanny Bryce and Burt Williams and all those things, W.C. Fields and like those people putting on this like show, you know, in the sort of theater of Usher's mind.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good, I like, now I'm letting that sink in. That's really cool. I love that. Do you, oh gosh, the brain, it just like, oh, you're from Austin, is that right?
I'm from Detroit.
Detroit. Where did I see Austin?
Oh, so Austin, that's one of my fake bios.
Oh.
I have like fake bios on my website.
Oh, tricked by a fake bio. Oh my god. Yes. Oh, that's so funny because I was reading them both side by side, and
Yeah.
That is too much.
I actually need to update my fake bios because I like have been nominated for a Drama Desk Award now, yeah. And that went like anyway, like things like that. Because I wrote those like years and years ago.
Those were just like fun little like, you know, this is this and like whatever, but
yeah, like I just wanted to have like a bio that sounded like pretentious and hilarious, you know. But over the years, some people have thought that was my actual bio, which I think is so funny.
Oh no.
No, it's fine. That's like kind of what's the point, but
yeah. No, and I love on your website how it says like, you know, fake or real. Like I
right.
knew it. I knew it going in and I still let it get me.
Right.
Oh, that's amazing. And I love that you like lean into the living MJ.
Yeah, I mean, that was like my brand when Michael Joseph Jackson passed away. It was like Michael Living Jackson was born. And yet I always feel like some people get mad about Michael Living Jackson, but like, I feel like when you hear that, you can't help but think about him, which is in some ways been my experience of life anyway. Mm-hmm. Because wherever I go, there he is. Like if I have to say my name or like if someone has to read my name, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So like I think of it as weirdly honoring him.
Yeah. Interesting.
In like my own little dark, devious way.
And it just like, I'm always a fan when people like take something that like everyone's thinking of it anyway. You could either be like, oh, Michael Jackson, what are you talking about? Or,
right.
You know, and especially with...
Yeah, if my name was Whitney Houston, what would I say? How could I not capitalize on that?
Right. It's true. And like even my name's Shoshana, people always are like, oh, like Shoshana Bean.
Shoshana Bean, right. Yeah.
Who's amazing and so lovely. And I'm like, I wish, you know.
Right.
But there is that name thing. And then like with Usher, the double thing, do you think that just like adds another?
Yeah. So like in the piece, there was a point when I was like figuring out the piece, you know, even though, again, I don't think of it as autobiographical.
Right.
It's like, but it's important that I put some of those reference points in there because that to me sort of keeps the piece in a little bit of an unstable and buoyant place, right. That you're never quite sure of what's what, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I remember even reading, like, when I was at another show and I read the article in Playbill, like, mm-hmm. And it was like, A Strange Loop is about, you know, Usher, who's writing a thing about Usher. And, like, of course, everyone with how many layers to it, but I had to read it a few times to, like, fully take in, like, how layered it was. And I was like, oh, I'm so excited to see this. Even just the having to read it a few times to like fully get to it, I think adds this extra layer of like,
yeah,
you know, because sometimes you just read something and you're like, oh, that sounds good. I'll like that.
You know, I definitely wanted to invite people to think deeply and to peer into the like it's like that experience of when you put a mirror in front of a mirror and you always try to see if you can see to the back reflection, and you never can.
Yeah.
And I wanted the show to kind of feel like that, and to like reading about the show to feel like that.
Yeah, amazing. So I always like to ask people if there are any charities or nonprofits that you especially like that people should keep an eye on right now.
The Musical Theater Factory is very near and dear to me. Without Musical Theater Factory, Strange Loop wouldn't exist, frankly. And so I definitely think people should consider, if they have the means, to donate to MTF and support them in what they're doing. Supporting the Dramatists Guild is also another great organization that I'm on the board of that helps composers, librettists, playwrights. They've done a lot of incredible work during this pandemic and getting out emergency grants to artists who need them. So, donating to them will be really, really great. Who else? I don't know, like organizations that fight climate change, organizations that fight, immigrant detention. Like I'm very, like all the, like Planned Parenthood, like any of those organizations, I think everyone should support.
Yes, very
Civil Liberties, the American Civil Liberties Union, any organization that has to do with the free press and reporting, I'm all about it.
Yes, as a journalist myself, I'm a big fan of that one.
Yeah.
Yes, open and honest reporting is certainly incredible now more than ever.
For sure.
So I know we've already asked a little bit, but are there any things people should specifically be keeping an eye out on right now, and where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at TheLivingMJ, on Instagram at TheLivingMichaelJackson. My website is thelivingmichaeljackson.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm accessible.
Excellent. And then everyone should just get the Strange Loop cast album.
Oh yes, please pick up the cast album anywhere you get music. Streaming is okay, but buying the album is much better. I also have 2 albums of earlier music that are on Bandcamp. One is called Dirty Laundry. The other is called Good Clean Music. And then I have a single called 1985 Totally Forever that I wrote with lyricist Robert Maddock that I'm quite fond of. So if you're so inclined, please go over to Bandcamp and check out Dirty Laundry, Good Clean Music, 1985.
Amazing. I'm going to check that out right after this.
Yeah.
And then, just so y'all know, watching at home, The Show Must Go On continues tomorrow with L. Morgan Lee.
L. Morgan Lee.
So very excited. So tune in. You can find the whole series at bwaySHO.com. That's bwaySHO. And if you like what you're seeing and you want to become a Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/bwaySHO and become a Showtreon.
Woo!
Woo, woo. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. Thank you everyone for watching, and I hope the rest of your quarantine goes well, and I look forward to getting your Pulitzer in person.
Thank you, Shoshana. I appreciate it. It was lovely talking to you.
You too. Bye, y'all.
Bye.